reward is you get the ingredients, which give you the item, which lets you finish making this cool magic item, which will make you better at the story quests or quests that will advance your character, because not everything's like a plot railroad. That's how I like to do side quests. That's a totally separate tangent. Again, upcoming XP video after I'm done with my vacation. I'll do that one. But I like this. I do wish there was a bit more of an idea to help the GM. Might be in the GM guide that's out. I don't have that book. I'm going to be honest, we're going to get into buying the books in a few minutes. But the overall mentality for crafting, I really like. A lot of the underlying design for how they handle a crafter's skill affecting how well they can make items, I like. You have to be of a certain proficiency level of crafting to make items of a certain level or higher. I like. Yeah, you're trained in crafting. Cool. You're not a master crafter? I think master and level 15 are the ones. Again, might be wrong. Don't kill me if my numbers aren't right. But it's essentially a rough example. You're not a master crafter? You can't craft a level 15 item. You could craft a level 14. Cool. If you're high enough proficiency, an expert. Because they have their own tiers. But I like that. I really like how that's done. The next is one I really, really like. Again, this one I'm going to kind of compare to 5th edition. Specifically, again, the Xanathar's Guide. I use the XP rules from Xanathar's Guide. Which is levels 1 through 5, it's 4 XP. And 1 XP is essentially a milestone. From level 5 and up, it's 8 XP. Again, 1 XP is a milestone, typically. You do things much out of your comfort zone, way too high, you shouldn't be able to do this, you get 2 XP. That kind of situation. So, leveling, even in that with the Xanathars, low levels do level faster than high levels. But leveling stays fairly consistent. It's not, now it's this number, now we kind of double it, now it's this number, and now I keep track of XP of every monster, and if you guys go out your way and kill a big monster, all of a sudden you level like crazy. Some people love that. I'm not a huge fan of that. I like narrative leveling. And I will also say in the game, they essentially say you can do milestones. It's in a sidebar, and again, they don't commit to it. They don't even say it's a rules option. It's just if the GM wants to do milestones, roughly every 2 to 3 sessions. Just do that if you want to ignore all this. But the kind of official rules is 1,000 XP per level. That's it. Every level. You reach 1,000 XP, you're level 2. You reach 2,000 XP, you're level 3. They do have 800 per level for fast leveling, and I want to say 1,200 for slower leveling, but it stays the same every level. Now, how does that work? Well, the XP you get is kind of based on the level of the enemies you fight, or the hazards you face, or the traps you overcome. But it's not the CR system of CR5 creatures always give this amount of XP. If you're level 5 and you go against something level 5, you get, I want to say, like 10 XP. If you're level 4 and go against something level 5, you get more XP. If you're level 6 and go against something level 5, you get less XP. It's relative to your level. Now, again, we're going to kind of go into the things I personally don't tend to like in games that's in Pathfinder, when we get into the fact that in there, their scaling is you only get XP if things are up to 4 levels below you or up to 4 levels above you. You shouldn't face anything more than 4 levels above you, but again, if you do the math, you can extrapolate any level above. And below 4 levels, you just do 0 XP. You're powerful enough, this isn't about XP. Maybe it's a story quest. Maybe, again, you had to go get a rare item. Maybe you're 10th or 12th level and a whole bunch of goblins have the item you need. Goblins are no problem for you. You're not going to get XP for the goblins. Now, the person who's leading the goblins, maybe, in fact, we'll swap goblins for kobolds. Because kobolds, I can just say, okay, yeah, the kobolds won't give you XP, but there's a dragon. Because kobolds worship dragons. The dragon will give you some XP. But the big thing is, the kobolds are there. They're still kind of a threat with the numbers and all. They're really not, if you're high enough level. But you go through them, you feel like a badass till you get to the dragon, then there's a real fight that's a threat. Maybe there's a couple higher level, maybe there's like a kobold sorcerer who's actually like, we were level 12, maybe he's a level 9 kobold sorcerer. Boom, adjust the level, make a kobold sorcerer, he matters. the kobolds are just nuisances. They're constantly getting in the way. Cool. That's part of the heroic storytelling. But that's XP. Real simple. It's relative to your level. Now, the other thing I love is those are it's a set table of plus or minus per level, but the actual XP is a budget situation. It's supposed to be an XP budget, which is really so similar to the CR system. I'm like, nah, personally, but a lot of people run XP budgets of, is the fight simple? Is the fight kind of average? Is it hard? Is it dangerous? Is it super deadly? And that's what the final XP everybody gets. And that's your budget, and you use that relative to your level table for each monster to fill, or threat to fill the budget, blah, 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 blah. It is Pathfinder. Setting up encounters is kind of complicated, but not that complicated. More just time-consuming. But that 1,000 XP per level, flat, no bell curve, I actually love it. I really do. I have my own XP system, the Xanathar's, for 5th edition I use. It works fine. I've thought about just keeping an even number. Split the difference, maybe 5 or 6. So the low levels run. It also creates that thing of, you're level 1 for a while. It takes roughly as long to go from level 1 to level 2 as it takes to go from level 19 to level 20. It's not progressively longer the higher level you are. Which means, if you go, this is a campaign that stretches 5 levels, that campaign length will be roughly the same if it's a low-level campaign versus a high-level campaign. It's just what you're doing that changes. I like that. I actually really, really like that. The last thing on the things I like isn't something they came up with. It's more, I appreciate. They have a sidebar that brings, actually they have like a whole page and a half, I want to say, about inclusivity in gaming, about bringing people to the game, bringing people to your tables, basically don't be a bigoted jerk and stuff. But they also have a sidebar explaining X cards and explaining walls and veils, or shadows and veils. I always blank on what that term is. But, you know, things we do not talk about, things we allude to, and things that are okay. The X card of, even if we've agreed at it, at any point someone can kind of show the X card and be like, I'm not comfortable, we move on, so everybody feels better. I have heard several groups within the Pathfinder community be like, where are we bringing in inclusivity, because I can't talk, into the game, and why should we have to care about that? I'm one of the people that stands on this, and if you don't like this, that's fine. Go to a different channel. Honestly, I believe inclusivity in gaming matters. It's very, very important. That's not the point of this video, but I wanted to bring it up because the book brings it up, and I appreciate that the book brings it up. I'm really grateful even Pathfinders talking about this, and they do it, and it's not super in your face, and it's not forced, but it's there. And the thing I really like is it's there for people who maybe actually haven't looked into it, or because a lot of people play just with their friends around a table. Well, everybody's playing this game. You're playing with the same 4 people you've been for 20 years, so it hasn't really been a thing for you. It's still good to know. Okay, this is me turning the page, because hold on to your butts. We gotta get to the things I don't like. I noted it as the bad parts, but I want to preface this with, if you enjoy it, that is fine. This is my impressions. This is my opinions. You don't agree with it? Cool. We're both allowed to have fun in different ways. And a lot of these, I'm going to point out the fact that there are people who really like this type of game. More power to them. It's just not my type of game. I'm going to be trying out Pathfinder and actually giving a true, real shot with character creation this Friday. And next Friday, we might stream a session. But before I kind of get even more about it, but these are the things that are either red flags for me personally as a game, or things I don't like, all that. These are my gripes. The first one, technically number 1 and 2 are, it's not one thing. It's a prevailing issue with the book. Again, I said the book's very well laid out. The writers of the book have a bit of a problem of differentiating the concept of someone who might be new to role-playing with someone who is a moron. Subtle things and not subtle things all over the book point to this. There are things where just word choices are kind of condescending. And no, I'm not going to cite a bunch of parts of the book to prove my argument. This is why I'm saying you don't agree, that's fine. But there are parts of this book where it feels like they're talking down to the reader. The GM section is much, much worse about this than any of the player stuff. This book is written to make the players happy, and this is where we get into number 2 of the core book, and I'll say why I'm putting that in quotes. But number 2 of the core book, because this prevails into it, they're all about making the players happy, and they're all about making the GM feel like you can't do this unless you buy written modules. Flat out. And this isn't, oh, you don't know the system well enough, that's why you think you can't. I know I can. I know I could take the time and do this and get it done. I've been GMing for decades. But the language, because I've been GMing for decades, but I also have a degree in writing, and I know how language works, and I know how all that goes. The language and some subtle things, some psychological things, and some flat out prevailing misconceptions are constantly nudging the GM towards, you should just buy the modules. Don't do it yourself. You can. We always want to tell you you can, but it'd be a lot smarter for you if you bought the modules. Things like flat out saying, not it can be for some people, because it can be for some people, but flat out saying, running modules is considerably easier than homebrewing games. No. For some people, it is. For some people, they don't like homebrewing. Running modules is easier and faster. I do believe the book also says faster. For other people, people like myself, a lot of the GMs who tend to homebrew, running modules is both harder and slower than just homebrewing it. Plain and simple. Saying definitively, our modules are better than doing it yourself, is actually advertising the modules. It's saying, hey, do the modules. A lot of this thing of the plus or minus 4 and the relative XP, there's good things in it, but there is also bloat. And we're in ways to make things sound way more complicated than they are if you were to just break down the math and look at how things are running underneath. Not everybody does that. Lots of people don't. I'm weird and just do that. It's easier than they make it sound. All the GM section, they word things and they push things and they nudge things to go, GMing's really hard. You should pay us to do it. GMing isn't easy. GMing isn't for everybody. And for some people, modules will help. And modules will be faster and better. I'm not saying that's not true. I'm saying the book is trying to exploit that mentality and push it towards, in addition to issue 1, they talk down to the players. I will give one explanation of talking down to the reader. They explain what floors are. This is in the terrain section, and yes, there's in a town, here's the floor. In a dungeon, here's the floor. It might be uneven all. The town one is literally, floors are typically made of wood and even, causing no penalties. That doesn't need to be in a book. Do I know what a wood floor is? Yes. Did you need to tell me? No. Did you need to tell anyone who isn't a moron? No. Now, you could say, well, it's consistent. No. How they do it, how they lay it out, it's bulleted exactly the same. It's not even a side thing like, hey, remember, some things are just, no, this is just as important as how hard thick undergrowth with thorns is. It's not. It's filler, and filler in a way that's really demeaning to the reader. Okay, so moving on with that, and kind of doesn't know, in filler, I got another couple things. One of these is just kind of a gripe. The book all over will say, give you something, like refer to something else in the book and give you a page number. Fine. That's cool. That's how you write, and you don't want to redo everything. That's actually efficient. But then why does the how to play the game and how to run the game have the exact same paragraphs on rest? No, there's no reason for it. It's just reusing material in different chapters. Because the GM didn't read how to play. They ran how the GM... No. Why? It's filler, and it's to stretch things out. It's honestly, the best way to put it, if you're an editor, it's bad writing. More importantly, it's bad editing, but it's bad form in creating a book to do this. And there's multiple instances of it. Again, I'm not going through the whole book, but those are things as someone who you got to pay that $60 price tag if you want it in print. This is over 600 pages, and they're wasting page space. You look and you go, why? And going with that, again, I said there's two things, is it comes to the situation of, one of the things, they do have like standard DCs as an option. They also have level-based DCs, and I'm going to get into level-based DCs and how I feel about those and all. But in that section, same section where it talks about both, they actually give you an example where the villain makes a wall, and it might be, and not epic, it might be a challenging check, whatever the DC 30 is. I blank. Again, I didn't memorize it, but I was just talking about this last night. It might be a challenging check to climb the wall to his fortress. That'd be DC 30. Alternatively, the villain is level 15, and he made the wall, so the DC might be DC 34. It doesn't matter which one you pick. That's a 4-point difference. That's a 20% different chance of success or failure for your players. Which one you pick matters. Now, saying there's two options, you get to pick which one, and saying I like 5th edition for that specifically might seem hypocritical. But here's the thing. D&D 5th edition and other modular games go, here are the core rules. Like, here's the baseline of the rules. Here are clearly defined variants that either modify or add on to the baseline of the rules. Here is core. Here are segmented modular options to change it. Pathfinder goes, here's A, here's B. Which one do you pick? We don't know, because it's confusing. And you know who did pick? The writers of the modules. Just pick the module. That's easier. At least get one. Then I'll give you an example. But you need to remember, you got to get one for each like chunk of levels, because the example might change from level to level. And yes, I'm being cynical and a little facetious with that, but it literally says it doesn't matter which one you pick when it's a 20% different chance of success. That's a big swing, okay? And that's because the two different ways to do the math are different. And when you get into higher levels, that can swing even bigger. Depending on how you look at things, those can be drastic swings. And this isn't the only example. There's a bunch in the book that say, it could be this or it could be this. Okay, but which one's the baseline, so I know which one's the core and which one's the variant? If I choose to like the variant better, I can tell my players we're using this variant. No. It's either. That's not good design. Flat out, that is not. That is confusing design. That is muddled design. That's inconsistent design. That is, we have two different design mechanics. You choose which one you like. With a game that, or system that leans so heavy on organized play, like Pathfinder does, this is even worse. They are super heavily leaned on organized play, and you buying their modules. That's Paizo's biggest chunk of their business model when you look at the Pathfinder lines. That's not, hey, we wrote a book and it's kind of a toolkit and you get to make what you're right. This isn't Fate. Okay? And this isn't written like Fate for 90% of the book. But then you got spots where they just go, yeah, whatever. It's bad. It just is. If this doesn't seem to bother you, fine. Again, have your fun how you have it. And I'm going to make my choices. It's not this huge roadblock that stops me. But for a new GM, it's really confusing. This is really bad. This is going to cause a lot of frustration and confusion for GMs. And it's one of those where it kind of gives this feeling that, again, they wanted a more modular system, because modular systems are kind of where game design's shifting now. Not just 5th edition, other systems. But this isn't modular. Modular is Legos. They're actual pieces. I almost said puzzle pieces, but you can swap them out. You can pick which fit and all of that stuff. There's no shape to the pieces, so you don't know. Okay. Now, I'm not going to get to the big one. I'll end on the big one. Kind of sitting on this is one, and again, kind of a pet peeve for me, is along with how they're writing this stuff, and it's again in the GM section, is whether consciously or subconsciously, because they're subtle, they push gotcha GMing, which I'm not a fan of. I think if you like that, you like the really old school, that Gygaxian style of play of I'm out to trick you, cool, more power to you. I don't have fun in those games. We have evolved the hobby tremendously in 30 plus years to go beyond and deeper than that. And where is that? Well, it's stuff like when they talk about there are certain checks that if you're not trained in the skill, you cannot succeed. Does not matter what the DC is, you cannot succeed. They tell you that. And then they tell you not to tell the players that. Essentially, well, if the players didn't read this chunk, that's on them. Tough shit. Because in there explaining why, they go, you shouldn't tell them because who knows, they still might critically fail. That's a dick move as a GM. Like, if a player goes, I want to try this, you're like, you can't succeed if you're not trained. And the player still pushes and goes, but my character would still try it. Cool. Now we roll to try. And you could say, well, that's what they meant. It doesn't matter. That's technically the fringe case. If a player asks, can I do something? Maybe they misread something. Maybe they just have a list of the actions and didn't notice that it said only for trained in the skill, or just had an idea and you're like, well, technically that's that action, but I'm not supposed to tell you you can't succeed because I need to know if you critically fail. Tell the player, look, even if you roll well, even if you crit, you can't succeed on this. If you do this, we're just seeing if you fail or crit fail, how badly you fail. And they still want to do it? Cool. Honestly, I'd probably give them a hero point, because they're basically bennies. But the book says just don't tell them and revel in their failure, basically. And that's a dick move. That's pushing really outdated GMing. That's pushing, really the best way to put it is kind of toxic GMing. It's antagonistic in there. And I have no time or place for that in my books. So when it shows up, I'm going to call BS on it. All right. The last thing. The big thing. And yes, my lighting changed and it might have been changing throughout the video because I'm having to use natural light. I apologize. I'm probably going to put text in at the beginning of the video. My kid burnt out all my daylight bulbs, so I'm having to use a window, and we got storms coming in and out, so the lighting's constantly changing. I changed my ISO. Hopefully I'm bright enough again. Anyways, the last thing I need to talk about, I'm just going to drop the book, because this is actually a preference of style of play. I guess this is technically two things. And it's something, again, I ain't got time for it. I'm going to run the game because technically I can ignore it if I like enough of the game. It's the bloat. Mainly because the bloat is artificial. It's all an illusion. With proficiency, you get to add your level to all checks you're proficient in. Whether you're proficient or you're a master, it's your level, and the higher trained you are, it's then an additional bonus. Honestly, it doesn't matter. If you were to strip everything out and you actually break down to the fundamental math going on underneath it all, it's all an illusion. You're plus 40 to stealth because of how the DCs work does not matter. And that always irks me. Now, what do you mean by does not matter? And again, I had this thing, a back and forth where someone was trying to say, whoa, but the DCs scale at a different rate. And that's what... Here's the thing. The DCs always go up every level. And it's supposed to be every level of the challenge. We're going to get a little deeper of a dive, but hear me out. They always go up every level, and it's not constant. It goes +1, +1, +2. +1, +1, +2. If you stripped out the bonus every level, the DCs would go up by 1 every 3 levels. And it would be mathematically identical to not adding your level to your proficiency bonus. Yes, there's the +10, -10 for things getting easier, more or less easy. And yes, you are said you can give things that are of a different level of up to +4 or -4, which +1 for +1 level, +1 for +2 level, +2 for the +3 level. That's assuming it's on the 1. The +2 can fall anywhere because of how the scaling works and stuff. Again, we're breaking it down simply. But if you break down the math, that +10, -10 could account for that level shift as well and just become +5, -5. But here's the problem. If you don't account for level in the proficiency bonus, theirs goes anywhere from a +0 to a +5. Originally, it was a 6-point spread. The D&D 5th edition proficiency is also a 6-point spread. If you go and you reverse engineer and you take out the accounting for the level spread and you equate that over to the +10 -10 mechanic they suggest as well, it averages out to technically a 6. But easier math, you'd round it to a 5. It would work just as well. If static difficulty went up and down by 5s instead of 10s, you'd have the difficulty chart of D&D 5th edition. Oh no! So much of this math is identical, and then a layer of, hey, we're kick-ass with high numbers is glued on top of it. Now, this also does a couple other things. Because of this bloat and the lack of it, D&D calls bound accuracy. Because of this stuff, it creates an interesting situation. D&D said they did bound accuracy so that Goblin will almost always be a threat no matter what level you are. The exact opposite is why Pathfinder does it. Because once you're level 9, you can only face things that are level 5 to level 14, or I think 13. You can only use this much of the monster manual. Now, yes, the trick is you could take a goblin and go, well, I still want them to face goblins and I still want them to matter. So I'm going to take that goblin and I'm going to make him a level 5 goblin. But then you create a different problem. If you want to keep monsters being useful, you have to add levels to them so the math works. And nothing else fundamentally of how hard they would be actually changes. Because again, it's all artificial bloat there to restrain what you can use in the bestiary, which also means buying more bestiaries as needed, or other accesses to more monsters and pre-selected monsters that will stay interesting. Like, I don't know, modules. What this does is what I call the Skyrim effect. They just basically say, yeah, you could do stuff 4 below your level, but none of it'll matter. You can't do anything 5 above your level or further because the bloat reaches a point where you'll just get squashed. So it's Skyrim's. The world, or I should say, your narrative, the part of the world you focus on with the players, will always be leveling with them. Now, again, this is actually a preference thing. Tons of people love Skyrim. Tons of people, and I love Skyrim. It's not D&D, but I love Skyrim. Tons of people love the fact that the world's always leveling with them. I've had players who said they always think what you're facing in the game should be tailored to be exactly within the level range of your current level. But for people who are more narrative focused, if you go to the Valley of the Giants and you go to try to pick a fight with a giant, you're way out of your level. Now, granted, nothing's stopping you from doing that in Pathfinder. Nothing's stopping you from being a 10th level character and going back and squashing a goblin den. But because of the bloat, the goblins stand basically no chance of even scratching you. Whereas with bound accuracy, you can face a ton of them. You can feel like a badass, but the threat is still there, even if it's lessened. The threat's gone. It's gone now. We're good. Now, I'm also exaggerating a bit. This isn't me going, I did all the math. I did all the underlying math. And this is the trend that it does. Some people like this. I feel Pathfinder has a small tweak. Well, actually, Pathfinder has a big problem of a lot of the writing and the design is pushing modules. They want you to keep buying their stuff. They're a business. I get it. But while they do have stuff that helps with the narrative play, this is more gamist than my typical games. And I do like gamist stuff in my games. Savage Worlds is very gamey in a lot of spaces. But this, and how you have to design stories and stuff to fit within the system, you have to think of it in very game-forward terms. You always have to worry about the character level on what they face. They can't really diverge from the math because the bloat really forces them into kind of this corral. And some people love that. Some people find it reassuring. Some people really love, again, I've had a friend who thought you should always face this because they wanted to know every fight they go into might be challenging, but they will always win. I don't want that. I don't want my players to know they'll always win. There's no threat. And I'm not saying their math is set where, like, you can't lose. In fact, 5th edition is really bad about, it's hard to really lose at 5th edition unless your GM's playing hardball, which I tend to. I don't pull punches. And your players make mistakes. 5th edition's very player power leans higher on the curve. I have them face things that should be well out of their range because what's considered deadly in that system is, one person might hit 0 once. That's not deadly in 5th edition. It's not. That's not a risk of death. So I'm not saying Pathfinder isn't deadly. I'm saying it has this restraint of you need to stay within the bubble as the bubble shifts in levels. And I think the worst part about it, at least to me, is when you do the math under it, all of it's fake. All of it's an illusion. What they did with the design and the things that are good could just as easily have been done without the bloat. But, and this isn't a slam against Pathfinder players, but 3.5 and Pathfinder and all of that also has a community where you have a lot of people that love getting to go, I have plus 40 to stealth. Just cuz. To get to say how big their numbers are. And Pathfinder created a very solid system and then added the big numbers after. Granted, that makes it a much more solid, much more streamlined, and a much more stable system than 3.5 and Pathfinder 1st Edition. But it's also a big illusion. And I have plus 40 stealth is, because you're at the level where that is. When you go up a level, you have 41. You didn't do anything to your stealth skill. Yes, you did the adventures that raised, but you didn't do anything special to your stealth skill for it to go up one more. And maybe you're at a level where you get skill increase, so instead of being 40 to 41, it's 40 to 42. Because each tier increase raises by 1. Cool. The biggest problem there is we go to the extremes. At level 20, if you're proficient in a skill, you're getting plus 2 for your proficiency and plus 20 for your level. Your level is providing 10 times the bonus of the fact that you are trained in the skill. Now, again, if you're not trained, it's a plus 0. So you could say, it's providing a plus 22 because I'm trained versus a 0, which was my biggest problem with the playtest of you would have a plus 18 because it was level minus 2. Being untrained just created a 4-point sweep, which really sucked. But at the end of the day, it's assuming this. Now, there's a lot of curves and hidden stuff to make this matter. So before you bring it up, of things like, you can't even attempt this unless you're trained as a master. Or you can't make this item unless you're a legendary crafter. You can't spot this trap unless you have thievery as a master. Like, you don't even get a check. But at that point, then the numbers are actually even more meaningless. Your attribute score counts less and less as you go up. Your level technically still kind of counts, but that attribute score really counts less and less as you go up. The numerical bonus you get from the different levels of training doesn't matter as much as the tags of being a master or being, it's not epic, expert. It doesn't matter as much as the tags of being an expert or being a master. The numerical bonuses actually matter much less than those tags. And part of me finds it really funny, but the other part, the cynical design focus side of me goes, okay, so it's all a big trick. Anyways, like I said, I like the game. I'm going to start playing it Friday. It's currently Monday. You'll be seeing this Tuesday if you watch it when it first comes out. I'm not trying to super bash the game. I'm giving it an honest shot at the table. At the very least, I'm doing a whole other video on things from this system I'm stealing, because this system has one or two of the best pieces of design in a decade, just in gaming in general. It has a lot of great ideas. There's a lot of fun things to be had in there. And who knows, I might hatchet out all the bloat to see how it runs someday. But at that point, you also don't call it Pathfinder. It's like saying D&D without classes isn't D&D. Pathfinder without classes, even though classes are really just like books of feats you take now, isn't Pathfinder. Pathfinder without the like insane number bloat of look how awesome my skill numbers are, would it still be Pathfinder? So, like I said, everybody has their own kind of fun. This comes with the territory of Pathfinder. I knew it was there. I knew it was coming. I wanted to see if it was meaningful, and really it's mostly an illusion. But I'm enjoying it. I'm liking it. I've read through the book twice. I'm going to read through it a third time. I will say, I picked up the book at a bookshop to go and check. As soon as I saw proficiency equals +0, I went, I got to get this book. The core book, yeah, I've been putting it in quotes every time I say it, is $60. But the core book doesn't have any monsters, which means you can't actually run the game with just the core book. The core book's actually a player's handbook. So the bestiary is another $50. Or I go online, I get the PDFs for $15 each to read them. If I really enjoy this, I think I'm going to get the GM screen physically, because I got the core book, I got the bestiary, I got the GM screen. I didn't pick up the GM guide yet, because I actually didn't even notice it was out when I was first picking this stuff up, and I just dropped $45 on 3 PDFs. It's expensive. If you want to get this in print, you're going to be dropping $200. Easy. Once you go your 3 core books, your GM screen, which I do actually highly recommend if you like Pathfinder. I'm really happy with the info on the GM screen. It's going to make running the game so much easier. And you're probably going to want a module, because the system's actually built for running modules. You can homebrew it, but they really, really want you to run the modules. Anyways, I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to do another video about the things I love so much. I'm going to try and hack them and put them in other games. Look forward to that. I might do another impressions video if my opinion super drops, turns out I hate it. If my opinion goes really high and turns out I love it, I'm going to be playing this all the time, I'll do a video. I'll let you guys know. If you guys want more Pathfinder videos from me, comment below. If there's other things you want to see me cover, comment below. Savage Worlds videos aren't going away. I just did 2 together last 2 weeks. I'm going to do none this week, and we're going to go back to every other week. Anyways, I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.